So I got another dumb idea. Did a little sledding down the front yard yesterday with the wife. And despite us being in our mid-30s, we're both basically 10 years old. And we had a good time. And we got nieces and nephews. And they like to sled. We usually sled down the driveway. But I got a perfect yard for this. And after walking up that a couple of times, that got old pretty quick. So I decided I'm going to build myself a little rope tow. So, in typical, if the women don't find you handsome, they might as well find you handy. I'm going to find a way to do this cheap. So I got to thinking what I had for motors. And I just so happen to have this gold pump motor. And we're seeing this for the first time. I actually don't even know how big this thing is. Half horse. Alright, so I would have preferred a little more power, but that'll be okay. So methinks we just take the pump body off this. If I throw a pulley on it, and I need to reduce the gearing, what's it spin at? Doesn't tell me what it spins at. Oh yeah, there we go. 3,480 RPM. So what else spins around 3,500 RPM? Engine. Lawnmower engines. But okay, so this is my newer zero turn, but I've got an old Craftsman in the back 40 that I think I shall drag out. That's how it's done. So I'm just going to bring this in here temporarily so I can jack it up. I'm going to rip that rear end out from under it, and if it's like every other Craftsman, which I'm sure it is, it's got a little pulley on the top of the diff or the trans, and we're just going to take that trans section and hopefully use that as our gear drive. So I'll get this thing jacked up and get the transmission out, and I'll pick the video back up once I get that done. Well, that was a lot easier than I expected it to be. So got the rear end out, and be ready to haul the lawnmower, what's left of the lawnmower, back into the woods until the spring, and I'll throw it out. But this, I think this is going to work out nicely. The pulley is way bigger than I thought it would be. I pulled these apart with hydrostatic transmissions, and the pulley in the back is much smaller on the hydros. So I picked up a belt that's going to be too small for this one, but that's okay. We'll throw that in the parts bin and use it for something later. Transmissions is your selection is right here. There is a diff, open diff, so I'm going to have to either weld this up, or actually I might even use this as part of a mounting for the whole unit. And that way we solid mount one side of the axle. In our drive axle, I'll put the wheel and the tire back on it, and we'll use that as what the rope will wrap around. So yeah, I think it's going to work out pretty nice. So let me hook this thing back up to the tractor and drag it into the woods without destroying my lawn. That'll be tricky, actually. Now that I mention it, that'll be fun. Oh no, I'll put it on a sled. We'll slide it under. We'll slide that back into the woods and go get the pool pump motor. We'll start ripping that apart and see if we can make that work. So what I was able to do is get the pump apart, get the body off it, get the shaft off it, and I ended up taking one of the pulleys that is on the mow deck itself, goes around top of the what drives the blade. I took it and beveled one of the edges so that it would slide perfectly over the shaft on the pump motor itself, and I melted the plastic impeller and down just to get the nut itself on there. Use the nut, threaded that back onto the new pulley, and it's it runs pretty true. So that's awesome. This is what I've got mocked up, or actually really loosely mocked up for right now, but this is kind of the plan. So I'm gonna have to get obviously everything up on some framework here, but I used some T-shaped T-bar heavy gauge stuff. Actually, this is a garage door opener channel that I had kicking around from my old garage door opener. So keeping with the low budget build here, I'm going to try to use everything free that I can. There is some stuff I obviously have to buy for this, including the rope. So I did a quick Lowe's run and picked up some stuff. So I got 2 rolls of this. There's 150 feet of 3/4 line. It's got a brake strength of I think 1,100 pounds, something like that. So it should be plenty for quite a few people. I ended up deciding on blue for the color of the lift. So I grabbed some paint, a whole bunch of different outdoor fittings, electrical switches, stuff like that I'm gonna need. What else? More electrical. Some LED bulbs, because I'm going to put in another light at the top of this lift, because this lift is going to go over on one side of my property that I don't have any lights off the house. So while I have it over there and have power going to it, it'll make a good place to put another set of lights. The framework done and welded up. Rope's going to be coming on from this side, so I got the motor in the front here, and it'll go under this tire, and I'll have to rig up some additional pulleys there, and then a whole lot more framework for the structure. That kind of gives you an idea of the setup, and my hope is that T-bar stock on the bottom will help kind of keep it from wanting to slide. Obviously you're going to have to anchor this thing down, but I think that'll dig right into the ground and into the snow and keep it from wanting to tweak to the right or to the left, because you're going to be pulling hard on one side of this thing. It's going to be a lot of torsional force. So yeah, we're getting there. We're getting there. Long way to go. A little rough, but she's running. So the speed looks really good. What I did with the motor is I made it sit on pivoting mounts at the bottom. I got spring tension on the pulley, so I think that'll work out real nice. Got a lot more work to do now on the front to make sure I keep my rope centered, and I got to put in a little control panel, and then I'll take it apart, paint it up, make it look all pretty. But progress. Purrs like a kid. A little bit of a change to the original design. This thing just keeps getting bigger, and it got to a point where it was big and heavy enough that getting this thing moved around was going to be a bit of a challenge. So I decided to make a little axle in the back here and take a couple of front tires off of the riding tractor, so that the back of this thing can roll, and I can lift the front and just drag it behind, which will be pretty good. I won't have to move it very often, but getting it out there and getting it back, that'll make things a lot easier. So now I'm going to do a bar that's going to go across here and then come down to some feet, which will just be like spikes to dig in the front, which I think will help it be more stable this way, and it'll help keep it from being pulled down the hill. Still going to anchor it to my deck, but that'll definitely help plant that front end nice and solid. Also made a little guide here. These guys can roll for the rope coming in, and for the rope coming out, it'll go down the tire. This pulley will force it to stick to the tire and give it a lot better traction. Then up to this top pulley, it'll come up and over and back down the hill. Made a little cover for the motor, helped keep that out of the weather. Nothing too fancy there, but it works. And yeah, and that's about it. So it looks like some screwed up off-road dragster right now, but at some point, once this is all done and the lines on it, it'll start looking like a lift. But that's kind of where we're at. So it's all finished up, all painted and pretty, and it works. It works great, actually. So I got all the electrical done, obviously. Got a switch for the lights, switch for the motor. The only change I had to make was to the pulley size on the motor. I ended up going down about 1.5 inches to a 3-inch pulley. The wheel speed was a little bit too quick, and it didn't have quite enough torque, so that solved both problems, just going down a notch on that drive pulley. And believe it or not, I didn't even have to anchor it. It's just sitting on the ground. And those front feet that I welded on dig right into the ground, and it works perfect. The only other change I made was the lower pulley now carries the bottom rope before it goes up to the top. And we'll head down. I'll show you the rest of the lift. Oh, I also put in this safety line too. This just goes over to another switch, real simple, and over to a little piece of rebar on that side. And if something were to trip this line, shuts it right down. So that's nice. And then you just flip the switch to restart it, and you're up and running. So this is the first of the little towers I made to keep the return line from getting in the way of you on your ride up. And it's just angle iron basically with a 4-inch pulley sitting on it and a little piece of steel across the top in case the cord bounces when you yank on the bottom. It just stays in line on the pulley. Oh, there goes one of the meetups there. And that's worked out real well. So I only needed 2 of them to keep it up off the ground. There's one more down there. You'll see it on the way up. But we'll go down and look at the base next. So down at the base, just made a little bit beefier version of what I have up there. These I used 2 of the front wheel rims off the Craftsman, and I welded a bolt onto some of that T-bar stock I had, which is a lot heavier, and then down to a base. And then that's anchored at the bottom and at the top with just some regular ratchet straps. So and then that wraps around a tree. And as the rope actually loosened a little bit over the last couple of nights, I've been running it as expected, and so you just ratchet that up to keep the tension where you want it. And we got a pretty good hill that it brings you up, right up to the house. So I guess the next step would be giving you a ride along. This is a little tricky to do with one hand on a camera, but we're going to give it a shot anyway. Ready to rip. So I think that's going to do it for this video. Yeah, that's going to do it for the video, I guess. I will probably, once we get some of the nieces and nephews over here, I'll definitely shoot another video of it where you can really see it in action. And it's more than just me, but I'm pretty damn happy with this thing, and I reuse so much old stuff. I mean, all the steel you see here, that's from one of those cheap tents you buy that, you know, tent folded up and collapsed in a windstorm, but I saved the metal, and everything else is just basic rebar, and that's it. Most expensive thing was the rope. That was about $200 for the rope, and that's really not bad. So for $200, I got a lift, and this is actually my front yard, not my backyard. So neighbors already called and said, "Are you seriously putting a lift in there?" Because I usually do this wacky stuff. So yep, now we got a lift. So thank you all very much for watching. If you have any questions, as always, feel free to write them in the comment section. I do appreciate it. And if you like this type of stuff, please click like and subscribe so I can justify my continued insanity and continued video. Thanks, and have a great night.